Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's broadcast. My name is Fabrice Declerck. I'm Science Director at EAT and a scientist with the Biodiversity International. But maybe more importantly, I'm human like everyone here, and food really is central to much of what I think and do on a day-to-day basis. So today, really quite thrilled to be able to moderate for you Sustainable Sundays. This is our fourth broadcast on the topic. This is an idea that was launched at the United Nations Food Systems Summit with Upworthy. This notion of good food for all, Sustainable Sundays, highlights how we can all act for a better food system each week by eating a healthy, climate-friendly, and biodiversity-friendly meal. So back in 2022, which is actually several months ago in 2002, the former UN Special Envoy, Dr. Agnes Kalibata, who will join us here today in just a little bit, was asked to convene a series of Sustainable Sundays with voices from chefs, food people from around the world, with the intent of really trying to drive forward a global conversation around the importance and role we can all play to ensure good food for all. And I think that that's not an understatement. The objective is really to ensure that we can secure good food for all people everywhere by 2030. And that we'll see through today's conversation that good food for all means not just making sure that we all have access to the healthy food, but that food is delicious, and also that the foods that we eat can be a means by which we contribute to environmental conservation, but with climate action, as well as biodiversity protection, conservation, and use. So this is our fourth Sustainable Sunday conversation. We've been gathering diverse actors from across the food system to discuss different facets of food for all. The focus of today's conversation is one that is really fundamental to me, the core of the work that I've done with farmers in the Yucatan and Mexico, in Colombia, in Africa, in Cambodia, around the Tonle Sap and the Zambia's Barotse floodplain. And that's the role of diversity in food. And I think that, when we talk about diversity, this can be a really confusing concept for many people. It's such a fuzzy concept, and we can speak about so many different elements of biodiversity. But for me, there's four critical biodiversity challenges for food. And the first one is, how do we produce enough food for 10 billion people by 2050 without further converting what we call intact ecosystems, those places which really are representative of biodiversity in its fullest form, as unhindered, as unmanipulated by humanity. And what foods we eat, how much food we eat, where we produce them, really is a key means of making sure that we can keep that space for biodiversity and the goods and services it provides, notably fighting climate change. Second is that biodiversity in agricultural lands, in food landscapes, really is fundamental. Both the diversity of foods that we produce and how do we get producer communities to match what we consumer communities need to eat. We know that we've been very good about producing enough food for everyone everywhere today. But if we wanted to produce enough healthy food, if we want to provide enough healthy food for everyone today, we're underproducing many key foods, primarily fruits, nuts, vegetables, beans. All those are the kinds of diversity that we need to increase. We talk a lot about needing to reduce meat consumption, particularly in Western diets, although this is a very variable goal from one place to another. But when we look at the data, I can't find a single country anywhere that is consuming the amount of diversity of fruits, nuts, vegetables, whole grains that's recommended. So a huge opportunity to increase a dietary diversity, which is the third major goal that I want to speak to today. And that is that when we talk about healthy foods, it certainly is about diversity across food groups. We need to make sure that we balance our foods across animal source foods or meats, fruits, nuts, vegetables, whole grains. Those are the food groups that everyone everywhere should have access to consume. But then cultural diversity, the identity of the place we come from, is really where that tremendous biodiversity in terms of types of fruits, types of beans, types of legumes, types of shellfish come in. And we find that in a healthy diet, there's ample scope for that tremendous diversity. And even that cultural diversity is a major means by which we both celebrate who we are as individuals, as society, as cultures, but also recognize the foods that come from the places that we call home. And finally, the fourth element is again, biodiversity in agricultural lands. 40% of our lands globally are used for food production. We can't have these be places where biodiversity can't thrive, can't cross, can't be connected, can't support food production. We can't produce many of the fruits, nuts, and vegetables that we'll speak about today without pollinators, without bees and wasps or other pest controlling insects, without the plants that grow on the margin of the fields that help us to keep our waters clear, without the tremendous soil biodiversity below ground, which is how we store carbon and fight climate in soils, which is how we release nutrients that allow us to produce healthy foods. So biodiversity really crosses those four domains. We'll focus probably more on dietary diversity today, or the foods that we consume, but just, I hope, setting the scene to think a bit about that critical role that biodiversity plays in healthy, sustainable, and delicious foods. So with that, I'd like to call on a dear friend, Agnes Calibata, Dr. Agnes Calibata, who many of you may know already, but Agnes was the UN Special Envoy for the UN Food Systems Summit, which for me was a really unique moment when, for the first time ever, I think, we began to talk about food in a cross-cutting way. Nature positive food, healthy food, sustainable food, recognizing the employment opportunities of farmers and farming communities, and also thinking about resilient foods. She's also the Minister of Agriculture and Animal Science in Rwanda, and the president of AGRA. So huge scope of breadth and tremendous experience. Agnes, it's great to see you again. Welcome to Sundays for Sustainability, or Sustainable Sundays.
Thank you, Fabrice, for having me and for those introductory remarks that you just gave. I'm not a minister, used to be. I'm the president of AGRA.
For a foreign minister. But Agnes, you've been so critically tied to agriculture and food production. And then with the UN Summit, I think began to look across multiple dimensions. When we say biodiversity in food, what does that mean to you? And how have you integrated biodiversity in your work?
Biodiversity means so many things, but maybe I could just start by saying it's how we survive. We need so many different things in our lives to make sure that we grow up healthy. Most of those happen because we actually nurture biodiversity. So look at my plate here. I have all these things that I brought: mangoes, oranges, apples, avocado, bananas. They all provide different things. And the reason I brought that particular plate is to help people understand that it's the different things in each of these fruits is extremely important for our growth, especially for young people, kids that are growing up. We need them to have access to those. But more practically, from the work that I do at my work here at AGRA, biodiversity is extremely important because we look at how we support communities with the different crops they have and really try to ensure that they can increase productivity and have the right level of productivity in the different crops that they grow. So from millet to cowpeas to sorghum to cassava to potatoes and so many things. Our job is to make sure that farmers can get good yields that can help them survive insect damage, fungal damage, all these things that reduce your yield, including actually drought. So the ability to strengthen the capability of these crops that farmers are used to continue giving them what they are looking for in these crops is really at the core of what we do. So that's really something that is called conventional breeding, working with scientists in the national research systems here in Africa, and ensuring that those scientists can improve these varieties so that instead of getting 1 ton of maize, you can actually get 3 tons of maize. Imagine just that's triple your yield. Instead of getting 5 tons of cassava, you can actually get 15 or 20 tons from the same plot. So those for the same energy. So that those are the things that we do and ensure that that we maximize the potential that God gave us, that is built within that nature gave us, that is built within the crops that we eat. Now, everything that takes away that capability, which is called biodiversity erosion, everything that takes away those plants that we might depend on to be able to increase the ability to increase production capacity, reduces our potential to be able to deal with these challenges and these problems. And that's the reason really it becomes increasingly important to sustain biodiversity, to ensure that we look at it as a bank. We have a bank to which we can go to get these traits, this capability to be able to survive drought, to be able to survive insect damage. So it's really important, in addition to all the things that we were saying earlier with regards to nutrition and all the beauty that we see around us because we have such a diverse world. So I'm really glad that we are having a conversation on biodiversity and health today.
Great, thanks, Agnes. And it's a pleasure to have you here. And I'm glad you shared some of that Rwandan agricultural biodiversity with us. And maybe you could before we pass on to our other guests, can you speak to us about, what is your favorite dish that reminds you of home, and what's the diversity you might find in that dish?
I mean, right now, my favorite thing that I'm going for so many reasons is the bean, and I probably have mentioned it before, but I was having a meeting with my team today, and basically the thing I was asking them, if we have beans that are increasing nutrients in the soil at the same rate as we are applying to the soil, or do we have such beans? And I was told, yeah, we have a faba bean in parts of West Africa that can fix nutrients to the levels that we would artificially apply. And then we have others like the common bean, which we eat in East Africa, which will improve nutrition in the soil by up to 30%. What I came to understand, most of these will need a little bit of fertilization anyway. They will need phosphates added. They will need a little bit of fertilization, but not too much. And then what they are adding is extremely different than what they need, and really completely enriches the soil and completely reduces what we would add artificially. So that is a bean that I think is extremely important. And yet in life, it's adding to protein dishes, and yet economically it's a bean that you can have 3 seasons a year if you're able to. It grows very fast, and lastly, in Rwanda, for example, it's iron fortified, so you can get all these pregnant women and young children that have bean as a main diet have now an added advantage of having iron fortified beans, thanks to the work of Harvest Plus down on the ground in these countries. So this is a plant that I think, and then it has so much mass above ground that it actually does give farmers different choices of what to do with that mass of yield that it puts above ground in terms of vegetation.
Yeah, no, I'm a huge fan of beans. And so the Latin name for the bean family is Fabaceae, and my own name Fabrice means the bean grower. So it's certainly my favorite plant family for the reason that you mentioned, both its capacity to improve soil nitrogen and also through its relationship with nitrogen provide a protein-rich crop. Let's call in our 2 guests. So Bibi and Vanshika, if you want to join us, we'd be happy to have you turn your cameras on. Hello, Vanshika. Hello, Bibi. How are you both? Bibi, doing well?
Super well, thank you. Just had breakfast.
Great. Vanshika, how are you doing?
I'm good. I just came back from lunch service.
Great. So so you both know Agnes. It's a pleasure to introduce Agnes to you. And I think you've been following the conversation, but let's pass it over to you. And I think you, Vanshika, you've been working on a recipe for us. You want to share your biodiverse recipe to get us started?
Yes. So I have a salad. It's called Shingju. It's from Meghalaya, which is a state in India. It is made with cabbage. So I've taken purple cabbage instead of the regular cabbage, and spring onions and coriander. And then they add, over there, they add some dried fish. But because I am right now working with a vegetarian restaurant, I found fish mint, which grows in the Northeast. It's extremely easy to grow. It just keeps it just grows like a weed and it tastes exactly like fish. So I'm using this instead of fish in our recipes. And there is a spice that I've made, which contains chickpea powder, which we made in house, and sumac, perilla seeds, and Sriracha Khong chili. It's a chili which is native to the Northeast. So that is the spice that we make. So basically, we just mix all of these things together. And the most interesting part is that it's had as a wrap in lotus leaf. So there's the lotus leaf that I also got from the Northeast. So you just break a part off, uh, fold it around the salad, and you eat it. It's super delicious, very aromatic because of the fish mint and all the other herbs that are going in there. Hill coriander, not the regular coriander, which is completely different, and all the spices that I've put in there. Sumac and perilla seeds, especially, are extremely flavorful, and sumac is very tart. So the salad is super tasty. So that is the food that I got today. I also got a jackfruit burger with black rice bun. So this is the bun. I cut it in two. Super soft and made with black rice. And this is the patty. I haven't assembled it yet. This is a patty made with jackfruit and black sesame seeds. So the jackfruit is cooked with a lot of black sesame paste, and then made into a patty. So that's the food
That looks fun. So you've just come back, if I understand it right, from a relatively long trip in Northeast India, and you were looking for unique ingredients to bring back to your new restaurant, Omom. Can you tell us a bit about what motivated that trip, and maybe what surprised you the most in your voyage of discovery?
I mean, every day I was seeing something that I've never heard of or used or even seen or know how to use. The land is 100% organic because the entire northeast of India, they're not allowed to use any chemicals. So whatever grows there just grows naturally, and they don't cut their crops. They just let it grow wild, and they just take the tops of it, and if the flower is grown or if the bud is grown, they just take that, and then they use that. They don't cut the forest like in any situation. They're very respectful of the entire environment, and I think that is why they still have all these different plants and biodiversity that we don't get anywhere else in India. So yeah, things like these and different kinds of chilies, a lot of different varieties of rice, a lot of different varieties of beans. I'm going to bring some to London with me on the 14th, right now when I come. And the way of cooking, they either smoke and dry things, or they boil things. So these are the two techniques that they use to cook. So everything is either dried and smoked and preserved. They still use wood to cook at home. They have some gas, but it's mainly just wood, mainly elder tree wood, because it grows in abundance, and bamboo. And they never cut the tree from the base. They just trim the branches, and they leave that land for 14 years. They move to another, shifting cultivation. So they move to another part of the land, they cultivate that, and they let that land be for 14 years, and then they come back to that land. So they're very respectful of how they cultivate their food and what they're eating. I went on walks in villages with did not even have networks or no phone, nothing. I could just take pictures and make videos, and I have quite a few of those. I just went on walks with the locals, and they were just plucking things from the ground and making me taste things. Thankfully, I didn't get any allergic reaction to anything, but the amount of food that is there is absolutely amazing, and they are still using all of that in their everyday cuisine. People just wake up in the morning, put their bamboo baskets on, go find food, forage food, and then go. They're also farmers, so they go do their farming, and they cook their food, eat their food, and they come back home. And insect protein is a very, very big part of their culture. So I tried silkworms. There's this little insect that grows in the rice paddy, because they eat a lot of rice. I tried that and ants and a lot of different things.
Well, what's the verdict there?
So I mean, the rice paddy insect gave me an upset stomach, but the rest were really tasty. I've tried crickets before, but ants, yeah, also I've tried before. Really nice and sour. And the silkworm was delicious.
Right. So rather unique part of the world where people are using almost a natural regeneration approach to food production, and where it seems that the produced all these improved forages as an important complement to to rice production and bean production, and it's actually not that far removed from where you are, Bibi, in the Zona Maya of Guatemala. I worked with the Yucatecan Mayan, so gosh, I think almost 20, 30 years ago now, quite a while, but also on these slash and burn or rotation systems, and tremendous diversity, both in Mayan home gardens as well as in slash and burn systems. You've been creating a nonprofit called Eat Better Guaito. I probably mispronounced that for my Mayan, but you say this is inspired by eating well, but also the Mayan notion of eating well. Tell us a bit about your nonprofit.
Thank you. Well, yes, it's Waik. So in just those 4 letters, there's a lot of interpretation on eating in a healthy and nutritious way. And I think we have to learn so much from our ancestors, from the land that we came from as well. Well, came from and got to. And now that you mentioned a bit about the Yucatan Peninsula, and I'm just briefly going to mention about this, is how we value our food, really, and what grows from the soil, our land. And in Yucatan, but also in the north of Guatemala, the chaya, this plant grows, and it's just this wonderful, wonderful taste, nutrition properties that sometimes, it's valued in Yucatan, but not so much here in Guatemala, and it just needs to be. So it's how we embrace what we have there already, to keep on being healthy and eating good, right, and being sustainable. So with Waik, I started this in 2016. The idea is to create food awareness and action to reduce malnutrition through creative and inclusive ways. Anything can go, because malnutrition does not discriminate. And we try to apply this through education, economics, transformative agroforestry, consumption, and technology. So we basically merge food security, climate sustainability, and human rights. And we just try to make this as simple as possible to relate with people with words and that they can understand and apply to their day-to-day lives, through children to seniors, everyone, everywhere.
Yeah, fantastic. And I remember chaya quite well with the mines. And what's nice, it's a shrub, and so it's a plant that you can cultivate, and that you can, as Vanshika was saying earlier, you can just harvest the tips of the leaves, and it will regrow or resprout. And so you can cultivate it without soil disturbance, which is an important way of combating climate, right? Whenever we turn soil over, that's when we release the carbon into the atmosphere. So perennial agriculture, as chai can be part of it, is a fascinating solution. Did you bring some food for us today, Bibi?
Oh, yes, I did. So I brought, just like Agnes, lots of fruits, yummy fruit. So we have watermelon that is absolutely outstanding, that it can actually grow in the desert. I saw that it was wild. Some mango, seasonal fruit that is now the end of this mango season. But because of climate change, it even started in December last year, which was unseen. So be careful with that. And some papaya, very good for digestion. And the papaya seeds, very good for any parasites. Then I brought some water. I think we really need to bring out the importance of drinking water and potable water. And please don't be offended, I got this from the UNICEF breastfeeding course. A breast. And the breastfeeding, our first food of life, which is absolutely biodiverse. It's super sustainable. And we need to revalue our first food of life. I'm not yet a mother, but I have this.
You're ready to practice. And there's actually an interesting link between breastfeeding and biodiversity. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but we are diverse unto ourselves, right? We have a massive microbiome, and the majority of our cells are actually non-human cells. And the first exposure to our microbiome comes from vaginal birth and then comes from breastfeeding. So breastfeeding is a critical way, not just of feeding, but also for children to develop an immune system and to share their mother's microbiome, which is microbiodiversity, and it's a biodiverse that plays a key role in our own health and our own immune systems. So Agnes, do you want to jump in and reflect or react to anything that you've heard from our two chefs?
No, thank you so much. Thank you both, Bibi and Vishak. I mean, it's amazing listening to what you've brought on the table. Two things come to mind coming from the Food Systems Summit. One, it really underscores why we went after each and everyone in the Food Systems Summit, recognizing that individually we have the power and the possibilities, and here you are demonstrating that we can actually influence the thinking, but also advocate for a food system, a functional food system. I mean, what you all have brought does put on the table the complexity of our food system. And Vishak, what you said really takes us back to a natural food system, and the fact that this natural food system does actually provide lessons for us today. And that's why within the Food Systems Summit, recognizing the role of indigenous peoples and recognizing their food systems was one of the things that was most important. In fact, there was a coalition launched on indigenous people's food systems, just to ensure that we all keep it on our agenda to protect these food systems. So I just wanted to applaud what you all brought to the table and to recognize that this is exactly why in the food system, reaching each and every one of us was important. It's up to each and every one of us to call out what is right from an environmental perspective, what is right from a food perspective, and to keep ensuring, like you're calling out the breast BB, to keep ensuring that we are giving the next generation only the best. So thank you.
Yeah, but Vanshika, I mean, could you imagine if that community you had visited had not protected that biodiversity? I mean, what would have been lost? I mean, how would that have felt, or what kinds of?
It was a big disappointment. It was because I had heard about it, but I'd never been to that part of the country, and it's really sad that a lot of the people of this country do not recognize the Northeast as part of mainland India, because a lot of the food habits, way of living is extremely different to what the rest of the country is doing. And that is why I also chose to go there first after the lockdown. This was my first trip, because I wanted to bring that back to this part of the country, to North India, and tell people and make them excited about what they are doing, and kind of make it a trend. And I've already seen two chefs have already now gone. I've just come back and two chefs have already gone, and they're asking me a lot about the ingredients, and the entire community is really excited about it. And I'm going to do a 2-week pop-up now, so hopefully that can create more and more excitement and more people visit that part of the world, not and not ruin it, but just to go and enjoy it. And this is the finished plate. I just wanted to show you the
Look at that.
salad in the lotus leaf. So you just eat it like that, like a wrap. And this is the burger.
Oh, it's beautiful. Now we all wish that we could travel to share that with you.
It's amazing. It's beautiful. Is the lotus leaf edible, or it's
yeah. So you just
ooh.
That's amazing.
it's so aromatic. It's so aromatic. You can't even imagine.
So Vanshika, I brought a mussel as my food to share with you today, and I brought it, and your lotus plant remind me of that because there's so many foods that we could produce from aquatic environments, right? So your lotus is coming from a pond or a lake, and really I think we sometimes undervalue or forget those plants. But the mussel for me, it's related to my Belgian heritage. Our national dish is moule frite. But now living in southern France, close to Valencia, the paella has become my go-to dish, which I really like because it's so diverse. Right, I've got one behind me, but it's got big fava beans, it's got bell peppers, it's got chicken, it's got mussels, clams, saffron as a spice that grows here locally as well. But to me, I think really an emblematic dish of local diversity. But what I really like about the mussel is that it's an animal source food, so it's high in protein, but it's probably the most environmentally or nature positive food. We can grow this without fresh water, without nutrients, without feed, and by growing them, we create habitat for other forms of aquatic biodiversity. So to me, it's just an inspiration food that really challenges me to think about how we can produce food in a way that creates more space for biodiversity than taking space away.
How much of that stuff that is behind you, is that a community dish or is it an individual dish?
Yeah. It's this is an 8-person paella, Agnes. So we sit around the table and we all take from the same dish, and so eating together.
So really going to what we always say, eating is culture. It's our culture as well. So basically, it's one way of bringing us back together. So it's lovely to see that. That is a culture that, we share all around the world, just getting back together all the time to share food.
I couldn't agree with you more, that the communal dish and that space for sharing. And I think this is what Sustainable Sundays is also about, right? It's taking the time to stop, think about what we're eating, enjoy the company of friends and family, and a space to have these kinds of conversations.
Sustainable Sunday is also about good food.
And I think everyone here has talked about really good food that is healthy, that is sustainable. And I think it's an important message, right? That Sustainable Sundays or eating healthy is not about deprivation, but really it's about exploring diversity. And I think, traveling through our plates, trying Indian ingredients or Rwandan ingredients or Mayan ingredients, and thinking about the people from those parts of the world and those cultures, and how our individual actions can have a global impact.
Talking Sundays. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Agnes.
No. I was going to say that talking about good food for all, maybe it's also about time that Paul joins us and we celebrate this whole good food idea with him. We wouldn't be here talking about good food and the whole good food idea if it wasn't the passion we have Paul behind all this stuff. So really, the momentum behind Sustainable Sundays, the momentum behind good food, and just doubling down. I think next time we should also have kids on the program, doubling down and just ensuring that that good food for all is an idea that we grow into the future.
That's a great idea. It's so great to listen to you guys. I've been listening, and the conversation's been going in so many amazing directions, from communal food, right from birth, our first foods, to biodiverse and ancient cultures, to how we come around food and gather. And I think, this is the power of good food. And I think, the idea of also equity around the world, and the SDGs really are a plan for really helping us ensure everyone has access to the right food that helps deliver for people, planet, and prosperity. And I think, each of you have kind of brought elements of that. And what I love so much is looking across the continents which you each are coming from. There's just so many rich traditions. And every time I hear people speak about food, I learn something new. I learn a new idea, a new area, and it makes you just want to go and explore. It makes you want to be more adventurous in what you eat. And I think this is really important. And so, Sustainable Sundays is designed essentially just to enable a way for people to make an impact, to actually help to choose a healthy and climate-friendly meal that's good for people and planet, and have that once a week at least. And, you know, we could easily do that every day as well. But you know, sometimes it's good just to get a habit going by doing something, you know, once a week. And so we're asking people to gather around on Sundays and do this and share meals together and you know, use that hashtag and just generate conversations. We're sharing recipes each Sunday as well that are coming from different chefs in different parts of the world. But I love, Agnes, what you've just suggested about getting some kids. I think we might have to bring a kids conversation together around what they enjoy around food. This week, Sesame Street just released a new initiative around good food. And so you have like all the Sesame Street characters, which many of us would have seen as we grew up in different parts of the world, talking about food. And I think this is really, really important to engage kids in food, and kids love food. So thank you guys for all coming together, and thank you for this conversation. And I can't wait to visit and try some of this food in different parts of the world. So, oh.
I think Bibi wanted to say something earlier, and I cut her off. Do you want to come in, Bibi?
Oh, I just want to say that also on Sundays, make the time to be with food and explore and create. I mean, those are the times that I make these really, I mean, I'm not a chef. My mom cooks amazing. I'm still very low in the ranking of cooking, but I make incredible pancakes, not with the main flour, but like oatmeal, amaranth, different green superfoods, and just having fun in the kitchen. And mostly people say, oh, I don't have time to sit down and prepare a meal. You just go crazy and make the time for it and go wild with yummy things and good things.
It's unique, isn't it, Bibi, that we have an important climate action, we have an important equity action, we have an important health action, yet it's a fun action, and that's rather unique. So I hope, Paul, that we do get to extend this beyond Sunday. And I think on the equity part, what's critically important is that I think it's our responsibility to eat sustainably. You know, if we're contributing to further climate impact, it's not just our own lives that we're impacting, but those of people across the world. And so it really is a major responsibility for us to take any action that we can as individuals to help us move towards a safe climate. And fortunately, good, delicious, healthy food is a key ingredient in that challenge.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, you know, just even having these conversations around food and understanding food and really talking about and appreciating it just helps us move that forward. And so it's so great to have all of you guys here as part of this conversation today. And thank you, Fabrice, for gathering us around your paella there. This would have been far nicer with a camera looking straight down on that paella and us all sitting around and eating together. But you know, Zoom brings us together in different ways, so it's great to be there. So check out Sustainable Sundays online. There's other conversations, there's going to be more. Check out the recipes, and thank you guys.
It's an open invitation. You're all welcome to have paella as soon as we can.
Thank you.
And Vanshika's lotus flower.
Lotus leaf.
Lotus leaf.
Yeah. Oh, it's so
Perfect. Thank you.